My friends, the attacks resumed just a short while ago. After an entire night under fire, new explosions are being heard in Bandar Abbas in southern Iran. And the Americans sent a message that leaves no doubt about what's coming next. They said the following: if you thought the operations were over, you're mistaken. There's much more coming. But the night that just passed wasn't just another round, it changed in scale. Because for the first time since the ceasefire, the Americans left the Strait region near the Strait of Hormuz and went to strike. On the other side of the Gulf, right in the province that supports the regime's finances, very close to Karg Island. And there was more. The Americans also used a new weapon in this round, a weapon they had never used against Iran before. And now pay attention to what's at the heart of this video. Today, Iran's foreign ministry went public and confirmed that it was negotiating with Oman to resolve the Strait crisis. And on the same day, that same morning, the Revolutionary Guard fired at 3 countries. One side of the regime sits at the table, the other side of the regime shoots. I'm going to show you here who's winning this fight inside Tehran, because the answer defines, or will define, the next few months. For last, I saved the numbers few showed, figures from the Arab world that reveal how much damage this regime causes its neighbors. Stick with me until the end, because those who do understand more, by the end of this video, you'll be able to answer a question even Americans can't. Who's really in charge in Iran? And if you've already watched the last videos, you know that here there are no copied headlines, there are cross-checked sources in 3 languages, and today I brought material straight from the Arab press. Subscribe and turn on notifications. This story updates constantly. I'll report directly from Israel as events unfold. Let's return to last night and early today, when things escalated further. The American military command confirmed dozens of targets hit in several Iranian cities: air defenses, radars, coastal positions, speedboats, missiles, and drones. And these are the images from the beginning of the video. These are the images we have so far from this early morning. Up to this point, it's the usual American playbook, right? But look at what changed this time. According to the American statement itself, this was the first time they used suicide boats against Iran. For those who don't understand, let me explain. What is this? It's an unmanned boat, a small speedboat, unmanned, loaded with explosives that sails by itself to the target and crashes into it. It's a bitter irony, guys, okay? We know this because that's exactly the weapon the Revolutionary Guard has been using against commercial ships for years. In other words, there's nothing new about this new American weapon. And the Houthis also use it in the Red Sea. But it's good that they started using it, right? Better late than never. The Americans took the enemy's weapon. And they responded in kind, boat against boat. And the message is very clear. The Americans get close to the Iranian coast without risking a single pilot, without risking a single sailor. Fire without risk on one side and total risk on the other side, the Iranian side. And there's a second change which is the most serious of all. Until now, the Americans always struck in the same neighborhood. They're in Hormuz, Bandar Abbas, the islands, the ports of the strait. They're in Sirik, in that region near Kersh, all right next to the shipping lane. Last night, they left Hormuz and went to strike on the other side of the Persian Gulf in the province of Khuzestan, okay? Just look at the distance on the map. Khuzestan is way up there, all right? Deep, way in the back of the Gulf, hundreds of kilometers from the strait. It has nothing to do with ship traffic. Let me show you here on the map exactly where this point is, because it's important for us to understand where the war is at this exact moment. Pay attention. The attacks continue. They've always been here in this region of the Strait of Hormuz. Always. And now they're here, look, happening in this region up here. Right on the other side, really on the other side of the Gulf. That's what's important for us to understand, to grasp the scale of the conflict. It's growing with each passing day. Here is the map of the targets, where the bombs hit, point by point, during the early hours of this morning. So, remember this name because it's very important. Khuzestan is the province in the southwest of Iran, right on the border with Iraq in the Persian Gulf. That's where the largest oil field in the country is located. Do you remember Karg Island? That's the spot. The regime's money comes from there. It's the province funding the Revolutionary Guard. That's the truth. And sources from the Iranian opposition listed the cities that were hit in that region. I marked all the targets on the map here on the side so you can see them with your own eyes. I'll keep showing this map from time to time. Can someone write in the comments that the audio is normal, guys? There are people who always join and end up not hearing anything. I don't know exactly why. Let's keep going. Look at this concentration. All in one spot, in the same province, all on the oil. Now you see why the American message and its language changed. Until yesterday, the message was, stop messing with the ships. Wasn't that the message? And today the message is, I know exactly where your money is. It's no longer an operation about the strait, it's an operation about the cash, the money, the regime's money. And the Iranian state agency confirmed the human cost of this round. One person lost their life and 7 were injured in an operation in Isfahan province, in the center of the country. Isfahan is in the center of the country. Khuzestan is at the bottom of the Gulf. And the coast of the strait, down there in the south, just so you can understand here on the map. The map of American targets is no longer just a single line. Now it's a blotch on the map, right? We can see there that it already covers parts of Iran. In other words, with each wave of attacks, it grows a little more. That's probably how it's going to be from now on. And here I need to be honest with you about the real size of this American operation because the headline ends up being misleading. Despite all this, the Americans are still limiting themselves to the south of Iran. They're still targeting air defense, radar, boats, and fuel depots. That's what's happening right now. We don't have any attacks in Tehran yet. In other words, the United States still doesn't want a full-scale war against Iran. They're calibrating, measuring, and controlling. In fact, there isn't even a name for it yet, folks. There's no operation name yet, right? Is it still the same name, Epic Fury, or did it change? So far, there's no official name and no declared war, okay? So this would be under the American government's self-defense rules, right? They're defending themselves from the Iranian attacks on the Strait of Hormuz. But I've been insisting on this point, guys. I've been saying this for a few days and I'm going to repeat it again. As long as only radar systems and boats take the hit, the regime replaces everything in a few weeks and goes back to the same game. The cost needs to reach those who give the orders. But there's something new here that shows the Americans might be changing their minds. And entering this region of Khuzestan, hitting the oil province, is not a defensive operation at all. It's a strangulation campaign. And Iran responded as it always does, by hitting its neighbors. The Revolutionary Guard claimed responsibility for attacks against 3 countries, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan. And it claims to have hit fuel depots, Patriot defense batteries, radars, and missile depots at American bases. But the armies of Kuwait and Jordan tell a different story. They say they intercepted the missiles. Jordan reported that it shot down 4 missiles coming from Iran with no injuries and no drone, and no damage at all, okay? Now let's do some math together. Because there's a detail in this story that most people missed, and it stays unnoticed unless we calculate it. Jordan says it intercepted 4 missiles, but Iran fired at least 8 at Jordanian territory. So do the math. If 8 were launched and 4 were intercepted, the other 4 landed somewhere, right? According to sources in the region, they supposedly fell on an airbase. Independent sources, people who shared their accounts on social media in those groups I follow, Telegram groups with residents from all over, say that these 4 got through and landed on an airbase. No one here is openly saying this, and I'm not claiming it. These are just reports. Basically, Jordan won't admit to any losses, and the Americans won't admit the shield was breached at some point. But the math doesn't lie, half of the missiles got through. And here's another detail that also came up in Iranian sources, and it reveals the American strategy. A good part of the operations in recent days targeted communication towers, okay? For the layperson, that doesn't mean absolutely anything, right? They'll just overlook this information and won't really understand the background, what's behind all of this. Communication towers, in other words, the Americans are cutting off the regime's voice. The regime's voice, folks. They're leaving the Iranian command unable to communicate with their own troops. It's the classic preparation of someone who intends to go further, right? In other words, to enter by land, either on Karg Island or in the Khuzestan region. That's what's happening now, it's preparation. Actually, all these waves from way back to me are mostly preparation for a ground incursion in that region to try to reduce, the number of casualties. American casualties as much as possible and disrupt the communication of this army with its soldiers and troops on the ground. Remember that Iran is a very mountainous place. If you take down one of those antennas, you end their ability to communicate easily, only being able to use satellite phones, and for sure, not every regular soldier has a satellite phone, right? Besides that, it's very easy. If you take down an antenna, soon there won't be any communication left. It's a classic strategy for anyone who intends to go deeper into the field, and the American army was also categorical. There were no American casualties in this round, no injuries, no losses. In other words, those rumors about American casualties that circulated yesterday, which I also mentioned here as rumors, do you remember that? I mentioned an unconfirmed rumor, but it was officially denied. I want to share this because on this channel, correcting information is as important as the news. It's another time that the Americans had casualties and they admitted it. Almost 24 hours after, they said they had casualties, and this time, they didn't say anything at all. Actually, they did say something. They said there were no victims at all right? So it's confirmed no Americans died. Now let's get to the main part of the video, where I need your full attention. Today, something happened that fully exposes the Iranian regime. In the morning, the spokesperson for the Iranian Foreign Ministry went public. And look at what he said in an interview, okay? What he said in this interview reflects the whole regime. He started strong, stating the memorandum agreement, the framework agreement, has ended, and that the ones violating the agreement are the Americans. He called Trump a liar, and he said that lying is part of the behavior of the American government. And he finished with the most important sentence, right? The most serious one, we could say. Iran will not accept the request from international inspectors to enter Iranian atomic facilities. In other words, there will be no inspections at all. Guys, they can do whatever they want, or just keep doing what they were already doing from here on out. Up to that point, it's the usual aggressive tone, right? The same tone as always from the regime, a cornered regime making noise. But now, pay attention to what this same man said. In the same interview, just a few minutes later, he confirmed that there were negotiations in Oman on Saturday. And that conversation dealt exclusively with the Strait of Hormuz within Article 5 of the memorandum. Pay attention, everyone. And he went further, complaining that American pressure hindered Iran's efforts to reach an agreement with Oman on a joint mechanism. In other words, for Iran and Oman to operate the strait. You heard it again, right? Let's listen again, folks. He just admitted it. Iran is negotiating, or at least was negotiating. The Iranian foreign minister was sitting in a room there in Muscat on Saturday, while the missiles were flying. And a mechanism for the strait was being worked out together with Oman. And the spokesperson regrets that this didn't move forward. In other words, in the same interview, the regime says the agreement is dead and complains that the agreement didn't move forward. This isn't a contradiction out of stupidity, okay? This is about survival, because the political wing of the regime is being crushed by the hardliners at home. If they show up negotiating without speaking tough, they become traitors on the inside. And in that regime, we know what happens to traitors, right? They don't get to grow old and retire. So they do both things at the same time. They negotiate quietly and shout loudly. It's the price they pay to keep breathing. The political wing still wants the deal. That's a fact. They need the deal because without a deal, there's no money, no oil sold, no survival. And now look at what the other wing of the same regime is doing. On the same day, that same morning, firing missiles at 3 neighboring countries, and it didn't stop there, folks. The military advisor to the new supreme leader, Mustafa Khamenei, the one nobody has ever seen, went public calling for revenge. He stated that continuing to demand revenge is the natural right of the Iranian nation and said that the nation lost an important figure, that the departure of the great leader is no small thing, and that today, many free men around the world aspire to know the leader's ideals. While the foreign ministry mourns the collapse of the talks, the supreme leader's advisor keeps the call for global revenge alive. And there was this one, he went too far, okay? This one went too far. The former advisor to Khamenei stated that if NATO bases are used against the Islamic Republic, Iran will strike those bases even if they are in Europe. They have already struck bases once actually there in Turkey because there was an American presence in the region. It could happen again, right? Or maybe not. In other words, a regime that has been taking a beating for 4 straight nights, just to remind those who may have forgotten, 4 straight nights, has already lost hundreds of targets and can't even protect its own port, has just threatened to strike military bases inside the European continent. And the same man also claimed that Iran shot down an F-35 fighter jet and promised, soon we will shoot down all the others. And now I'm going to give you the full picture, because this channel doesn't deal in half-truths. No F-35 has actually been shot down, okay? They were hit, not shot down, not by Iran or anyone else anywhere in the world since this plane has existed. The Americans categorically deny that any F-35 aircraft has been shot down, okay? There's a big difference between being hit and being shot down, right? But I'm going to be fair about the facts here, even when I don't like them very much. In March, an American F-35 was hit by Iranian fire. It was hit and had to make an emergency landing. The pilot was injured and the plane was put out of service. The Americans confirmed it. The aircraft was hit, damaged, and forced to land, but it wasn't shot down. Shot down means exploding in the air, which didn't occur. In April, Iran shot down another American fighter jet of a different model, and the pilot also had to be rescued. Everyone followed this here in real time, right, guys? So the regime does have some capability. I'm not going to sell you the fantasy that they're harmless or that they have no capability at all, but hitting a plane is one thing, and saying they shot down the fighter jet, one of the most advanced fighters on the planet, and that they're going to shoot down all the others is something else, right? That's total fantasy, guys. And then that's where propaganda comes in, guys. Propaganda starts at this point because it's important. The important thing isn't the lie itself, it's understanding who the lie is being told to. And there are people repeating this lie of his to the rest of the world. The truth is, it's not even this guy's intention for you to do this job for him. He wants to tell that story at home to the Iranian people themselves. It's time for water. He's saying this internally, folks, to the Iranian people who are in the dark, facing triple-digit inflation, watching their own country's ports become targets. This is for internal regime consumption, folks. When the regime can't show a real victory, it starts to make one up. And now let's put it all together, because the picture is complete. Don't leave yet. There's important information coming up. Stay until the end of the video, or you'll miss what's happening in the Middle East, especially in Iran today. All in one day. The foreign ministry admitting that it negotiated with Oman and regretting that the talks didn't move forward. The Revolutionary Guard firing at 3 countries. The Supreme Leader's advisor is calling for global revenge, while the former advisor to the previous leader is threatening Europe and claiming they shot down a fighter jet that wasn't seen going down. This isn't strategy. This is a house divided. And here is my take, and it's the reason for this video. There is no agreement with a house divided. I've said this here a few times already because the hand that signs is not the hand that shoots. They're two different things. If Trump strikes a deal with the foreign minister tomorrow, or with the political wing, who can ensure the Revolutionary Guard won't hit a ship the day after tomorrow? No one can guarantee that since the Guard doesn't report to the foreign minister. Who remembers how long we've discussed the split inside Iran? We've said for a long time there's a divide. There's no point signing with the political wing. Will the other side accept it? We're now seeing this unfold in real time. It didn't take long to start happening, but it's happening in real time, and the events of this week prove it. Every time diplomacy got close to an agreement, or in theory close to an agreement, no matter how absurd it was, someone attacked a ship. Every time this happened. Look at the sequence, which is almost comical because it's so blatant. The foreign minister traveled to Oman to negotiate the strait. That same night, the Guard fired at the ship. The negotiators from Qatar arrived in Tehran to ease the tension, and that same early morning, the strait was declared closed by the Revolutionary Guard. A proposal for 2 routes was put on the table. Remember the Oman route and the Iran route? And the response from the Guard came in the form of missiles against 6 countries. This isn't a coincidence, this is internal sabotage. There is someone inside that regime whose mission is to bury any agreement at its inception. And the reason is simple, I've already explained it here. Agreement means the end of the protection scheme in Hormuz, the end of easy money for the Guard, and the end of power for those who live off conflict. They're not sabotaging the Americans, they're sabotaging their own colleagues in the government. Now I'll answer the question I promised at the start. Who is winning this fight in Tehran? Who? Of course, it's the Revolutionary Guard, right, guys? Just look at the scoreboard. The Oman negotiations are over. The memorandum declared dead by the foreign ministry itself is over. Nuclear inspectors have been blocked. The strikes continue every night, even now while we're talking here in real time, okay? The Americans were attacking targets in Iran just a little while ago. Right now, 2:23 p.m. Israel time. And the new Supreme Leader, the one nobody sees or hears, right? He's on the side of the Revolutionary Guard. That came out in a report I showed you yesterday, in yesterday's video. For those who missed it, go back and watch it again. And this changes everything, because when the formal owner of the house, if he even exists, supports the armed faction doesn't need to convince anyone anymore. They just need to keep shooting. The political wing of Iran has already lost. It only still exists because, I don't know guys, maybe by luck, but it's already lost. It just hasn't been told yet, okay? If this video is already giving you the headline, then go ahead and leave your like. A lot of people forget to do that. Leave your thumbs up, okay? Because now I'm going to show you the number that almost no one has shown. And it comes from the Arab press itself, much to the despair of the leftists. According to the Turkish news agency Anadolu, Iran fired more than 6,000 missiles and drones at 7 Arab countries in just over 40 days. Guys, just look at the amount, look at the number. 6,000 missiles plus drones, okay? Against 7 Arab countries. And they didn't just fall on military bases, they fell in residential areas, in oil refineries, on streets with civilians walking. And the most ironic example is Qatar. Qatar mediated for Iran, hosted Iran, spent months acting as a bridge, and yesterday Qatar was hit by a missile with civilians injured in the street. In the dictionary of this regime, the word gratitude doesn't exist, only the word usefulness. When you stop being useful, you become a target. And here's the fact that impressed me the most. It should also be on every news broadcast on the planet. According to estimates by analysts published in March, the Gulf countries had already burned through most of their stock of interceptor missiles. The Emirates and Kuwait are said to have used about 75% of their Patriots, those interceptor missiles, Bahrain almost 90%. The neighbors' defenses are being depleted and Iran knows it. Each intercepted missile costs millions of dollars. Each interceptor missile, whether it's the Patriot or here in Israel the Iron Dome or the Arrow, costs millions of dollars. Guys, each one is not a missile battery. Some people get confused about that. That battery, no, it's each missile, guys. And each Iranian missile costs a fraction of that. It's an economic war of attrition, and the regime in this regard is coming out ahead in this specific calculation. And there's also a new player entering the fray, and almost no one has talked about them: the pro-Saudi militias from Yemen. Look at this, folks. The militias that support Saudi Arabia, which are based in Yemen, have announced that they are taking action to contain Iranian operations and that they will respond to any threat against freedom of navigation in the region. Let me explain the importance of this because this is very important. It's the first time this has happened since the beginning of this whole war, before the 40 days back then, and also in 2025. Iran is the home. Actually, Yemen is the home of the Houthis. For those who forgot about them, they still exist and are in Yemen. They are Iran's most loyal allies, the ones who shoot at ships in the Red Sea. On the other side, there's the Strait of Hormuz, and there's also the Red Sea, okay? They've been shooting in that region for over 2 years, operating like pirates. And now, within Yemen itself, militias supported by Saudi Arabia are declaring themselves against Iran. This means the Houthis' territory is now contested, with Saudis intervening internally by activating militias instead of deploying planes. They're not officially at war. The militias are fighting. It's the same proxy strategy as Iran. Saudi Arabia's proxy is now going to enter this war as well. Are they strong? There must be something over there. They must have some way to fight. Missiles or something, yes. Just like the Iranian militias that are in Iraq and Hezbollah itself, okay? So, Iran's axis is being attacked from within, over there in Yemen, in the most unlikely place on the map, and the Arab world has finally started using the right language, but for now, only words. The Gulf Cooperation Council condemned what it called Iran's repeated and heinous attacks. And look at this statement, quote, "Any attack on a council country is a direct attack on all council countries, those countries over there in the Gulf." And there was also a specific request in that statement, which is a direct blow to the Revolutionary Guard's scheme. The Arabs asked the international community, all of them together, to guarantee safe passage through Hormuz without any tolls or fees. No tolls and no fees written by Arabs in an Arab statement, okay? This didn't come from Israel, no folks. Those of you who follow the channel already know. I've been talking for days about the protection fee that the Revolutionary Guard charges ships, and now the Arab world has just publicly rejected this in writing. And the UN Security Council approved a resolution in March condemning the Iranian attacks against 7 Arab countries. It passed with 13 votes to 0. And why is this important? Because China and Russia didn't vote, in other words, they abstained. Really without courage, guys, not even to defend their own friend, which is Iran, so they didn't vote either against or in favor. But now I'm going to bring you the strongest thing I read today, and it's also from an Arab journalist, guys. As I said, I keep searching the Arab network for updates since it's important to hear the other side. No one else will present it this way. An Arab journalist named Abdul Haram al-Rashid is one of the most respected names in the Arab press. He's a former director of the Al Arabiya network, and he wrote an article with a title that's a bombshell within the Arab world itself. The title is a question. Why do some Arabs still justify Iranian aggression? Do you remember this? Does this sound familiar to you? For example, in Brazil, there are a lot of Arabs justifying Iranian aggression, even though they're Arabs, fake Arabs, right? Sunnis, they call themselves Sunni Arabs. Some Brazilians out there justifying Iranian aggression. He's asking this, guys, why do some Arabs still justify Iranian aggression? Actually, they're not even Arabs, right? They're fake Arab Brazilian Muslims because they're not Arabs, they're Muslims. And he clearly denounces that there are countries and Muslim voices that are justifying the Iranian missiles falling on other Arab countries. Let me explain this because it's important. One of the greatest journalists in the Arab world isn't exactly in love with Israel, okay? He's not pro-Israel. He's saying the following right to the faces of the Arabs. There are Arabs justifying the Iranian missile falling on Arab civilians. And if they justify the missile falling on Arabs, just imagine what they justify when the missile falls, for example, on Israel. It's the same disease, guys, and its name isn't solidarity, its name is hatred, and the hatred is so great that it even swallows up one's own brother. So keep this in mind because it explains a lot of what you see every day on social media. And where is Israel in this story, you ask me? And Israel, Davy, what's happening? It's not there, guys, and that's exactly the point. 6,000 missiles and drones against 7 Arab countries and against Israel in this whole round, nothing. Not a single missile or drone. The regime that has been promising to wipe out Israel for more than 4 decades fired at Qatar, at Kuwait, at Bahrain, at Jordan, at Oman, at the United Arab Emirates, and at Israel, it didn't fire a single thing. If someone tells you that Israel has no deterrence, then show them this map here. Because deterrence isn't about speeches, it's not done in statements, and it's not about press conferences. Deterrence is the enemy carefully choosing where they can shoot, because there are places where they can't handle the price of the response. And on Iran's list of targets, Israel wasn't included, at least for now, and it's not out of kindness, folks, it's a calculated decision. And here's a message for everyone who still repeats, right? There are a lot of people out there, influencers, repeating that Israel lost this war despite knowing absolutely nothing, right? Just take a look at this map here. Just look at the map, folks. Open the map and see the map. That's all it takes. 7 Arab countries getting beaten, and the country they swore to wipe off the map 4 decades ago, untouched. Because they know exactly what happens if a single missile comes our way. Any shot against Israel will officially unleash Israel in front of the whole world. And then the response won't go to the radar, it won't go to the communication tower, it won't go to the launcher, to the boat, it won't go to that, folks, it won't go to the base, it goes to the one who signs the order. And that's the difference between the American response and the Israeli response. The Americans hit the radar, the regime goes there and replaces the radar in 2 weeks and starts shooting again. And Israel doesn't waste time with the radar, because there's no point in destroying the antenna. What matters is getting to the one who orders that new antenna, the one who orders the base to be rebuilt, the one who signs the check. Here, no one messes around on the job, and the enemy knows that better than any TV analyst or YouTuber. That's why their missile falls in Qatar, that's why it falls in Kuwait, and that's why it doesn't fall here in Israel. And if there's still anyone who needs proof that Israel has won, folks, against the Shiite Axis, just look at how each front stands one by one. Let's make this clear once and for all. In Lebanon, Israel created a security line inside the territory and continues to clear the area every day away from the spotlight. And the result is the silence, okay? It's the silence. Hezbollah hasn't fired any more rockets or drones at northern Israel. Despite the daily threats, despite the posts, despite the speeches on the ground, total silence. In Gaza, Hamas has already lost 70% of the strip, and soon it will be 100 if they don't surrender their weapons. And look at this detail that seals the argument. From Gaza as well, my friends, no more rockets or missiles have been fired at Israel. Nothing, absolutely nothing, zero. In Syria, Israel created a security line at the border, and anyone who approaches that line with bad intentions, the same thing happened last week, I think, the fate of that person is a one-way trip to the other side to meet the leadership there. So, putting all this together, Lebanon is quiet, Gaza is quiet, Syria is contained, and Iran is firing at everyone except Israel. So when someone comes to tell you that Israel lost this war, you don't even need to argue. Just show them this comparison and let the map answer for you. And now I'm going to tell you something here that will change the way you see this whole crisis, because the divided house isn't just in Tehran. According to a report from the American website Politico, there's a message circulating within the American government. If talks with Iran collapses, which is already happening, the vice president may pay the price. He was the one who led the contacts on behalf of the United States, and in American politics, success gets applause, but failure gets pinned on someone. There's also a second, more interesting layer to this story. While the vice president bets on negotiation, the American Secretary of State defends a hardline stance against Iran, Marco Rubio, a friend of Israel. And in recent weeks, this hardline stance has been getting more and more attention from Trump himself, as patience with Tehran runs out. To translate what's at stake here, if the negotiations fall through, the hawk comes out on top. It's Marco Rubio, and the hardline stance becomes official White House policy. So here's the full picture of the board for those who just joined and still don't understand what's going on, folks. In Tehran, a divided house. The foreign minister wants an agreement. The Revolutionary Guard wants conflict. In Washington, another divided house. The vice president wants an agreement. The Secretary of State wants to tighten things up. Stronger and stronger. Two divided houses negotiating with each other, that's why nothing will move forward. But pay attention to the difference between the two, because that's everything, folks. In Washington, the one who decides this fight is the elected president. The dispute happens at the table with arguments, but in the end, the president signs and everyone obeys. In Tehran, the one with his finger on the trigger decides the fight. The guard doesn't convince anyone, it simply fires and creates a fait accompli that ties the government's own hands. That's the difference between a country and a regime. And that's why negotiations are dying, because on one side of the table there's someone in charge, and on the other side, he simply doesn't exist. And that's what the Revolutionary Guard was created for, right? To protect the regime from anything. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. That's it. There are two armies in Iran. There's the Iranian army and there's the Revolutionary Guard. The Revolutionary Guard was created to protect and ensure the eternal existence of the regime. That's their purpose, and that's what they're doing now. So let's go over the key points for you to watch. Now, there are three. The first one, Khuzestan, my friends, Khuzestan. Up there, near Kuwait. If the Americans keep entering the energy-rich province where Karak Island is, the regime loses its cash flow, and without money, even the Revolutionary Guard won't be able to maintain missiles, drones, or militias. The second one, the neighbor's shield. When the Gulf interceptors are completely gone, Iran will have a free hand to hit whatever it wants, and then the situation changes for everyone, including the price of fuel we pay here, folks. That will definitely change as well. And the third, the fate of the political wing. If the foreign minister is removed, arrested, or simply disappears from the news, it's a sign that the Guard has taken power for good. Then, even the appearance of negotiation will disappear. A Hebrew expression describes that day better than any analysis I could offer. And we say it like this here, mi balabeth, mi balabeth. Balabeth means the owner of the house, the one in charge, the one who decides, the one who answers. And when no one knows who's in command, Israelis usually ask, mi a balabeth, who is the owner of the house? Today, when looking at Tehran, that's the only question that matters. Because the foreign minister wants an agreement, the Guard wants conflict, the advisor wants revenge, and the supreme leader, the one nobody sees, hears, or listens to, who never shows up, right? He's a ghost. He rules by notes. Who is the owner of the house? That's the question that needs to be asked, folks. Until that question is answered, there can be no possible negotiation, because you can sign papers with the owner, with one of the owners, but you can't sign papers with a house where everyone pulls to their own side and no one is in charge of anyone. A house without an owner in the Middle East is extremely dangerous because when no one is responsible, someone is always willing to pull the trigger on their own. For those asking, I'm still here in Israel tracking every move, flight, and decision to inform you faster and better than mainstream media. That's my job. So, if this video somehow helped you understand who really runs Iran, then leave a like here, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with your family and work groups too, folks. I want your opinion here in the comments. Who do you really think is in charge of Iran? It's also important to know, and to put on record here, what you think is going on behind all of this, and whether you think the United States should increase its attacks in the coming days. And what's your opinion about the fact that Israel isn't being attacked at all, guys? Not a single missile, to the despair of the leftists who are freaking out right now, right? How come Iran hasn't attacked Israel yet? Well, there you go. Deal with that, guys. Israel defeated the axis of evil. The Shiite axis is in shambles. That's a fact. It's a fact, guys. There's no way to argue about that, okay? You can kick and scream, write in the comments, criticize, mock. That's it. That's all you ever do. So go ahead. Do what you know how to do best, guys. There is no one who can explain this any other way. There just isn't. You who... The sound is okay, thank you. Let's get rid of the leftist here, who talked a lot of nonsense. 2050, you leftist, you won't be here anymore either. Right? 2050, you were already gone a long time ago too. Marco, shalom. Davi, wishing you a prosperous week full of good news. Thanks for the super stick, Lourdes. Magda, congrats on your work. Thank you, Odayan. Kor, Davi, Anarko, Nenatsea. He wrote here, strength, Davi, we will win in Hebrew, okay? And Israel could arm and finance the Druze and the Syrian Kurds just like Iran does. Nelson, I'm absolutely sure that this has already happened. It has already happened. The Druze in Syria, who are pro-Israel and who asked for annexation by Israel, were probably armed by the Israeli army. I have no doubt that the weapons that were in Israel's hands, which were taken from Hezbollah, ended up in the hands of the Druze, okay? I really, to be honest, I have no doubt about that, okay? Just like part of these weapons, it was already reported in the past, a few weeks or months ago, I brought this information to you that these weapons had been sent to the Kurds, remember? The Kurds stole the weapons but didn't follow through. Donald Trump said they belonged to Hezbollah. And the same thing happened in the Christian cities, which asked to be annexed by Israel. They asked to join Israel's side. Guys, for me, this is the most important news of all because there are a lot of Christians who think differently, right? But the Christians down in southern Lebanon don't think that way. They asked for annexation. They wanted to be part of the state of Israel. But Israel has no intention of controlling, governing, dominating, or staying there forever in that territory. No intention at all. Davy, is the Brazil trip in August still on? I think it will happen smoothly. I have no issues, and since the airport in Israel is open, there should be no problems. Iran knows exactly how to act, guys. They're not going to attack Israel. For now, with the first missile, the only missile here in Israel, the response from the other side will be the Israeli response will be devastating. Remember that there is an Israeli plan, which was even revealed by the Israeli defense minister, saying that there is an Israeli counterattack plan, the biggest one so far. And it was prevented from being launched in that last round between Israel and Iran because Trump asked Israel not to do it. This plan probably includes the elimination of all that leadership. All of them, both from the political and the military wings. All those who are still left, that's probably Israel's plan to eliminate all of them. And Mossad, my friends, Mossad is inside, it lives inside Iran for a long time, for decades, okay? For those who still dream that this isn't... Thank you, Rubens. Davi, I'm an airline pilot and I'd like to tell you that the maneuver those refueling planes were doing is called a holding pattern or orbit. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Rubens, noted. Information noted here. Also very important, let's check on the planes. How are things now? They still haven't left the Gulf. Last night, in the early hours, there were a huge number of planes over the Gulf. Let's take a look. Real-time map, okay? This is real-time over the Gulf. As our friend said, orbit or holding pattern. But in this case, they're not waiting for anything, right? Because the attacks are still going on in the region. So they're orbiting there and firing, shooting at this region here. Look. They're here, right? This region here, look. And where's the island? Right here. If this isn't preparation to enter that island, I don't know what is, right? Total military preparation. Taking out the antennas, the control towers, the command towers. See these little spots here? These are mountains, guys. Huge mountains, okay? Gigantic. Iran is surrounded as if by a natural defense of mountains. Just pay attention here. This whole region here is mountainous. So it's about communication. If you take down a communications tower in these mountains, contact between Tehran and this region is gone. It's over. There's no way to communicate. You must have traveled on some road and lost cell signal, right? That's not hard to imagine happening. In a region like this, it's much more complicated to keep these antennas in sync. The moment one of them goes down, everything here gets knocked out, guys. Everything here gets much harder. The United States is conducting a real cleanup in this region. Cleanup. Will it solve the problem? No, it won't. Maybe things will work for a while and navigation will be normal here again. But will it fix it for good? No, they'll just set it up again. They'll set things up again. Let's check navigation here, like the Strait of Oman. I'll answer right now why this is Oman, okay? The Strait of Oman is empty. There's no one passing through. But here, on the Iranian side, they're still moving around. This arrow here means it's in motion. And the dot, when it's a dot, it means they're stopped, okay? This is Oman, guys. Someone wrote this here. Davi, you're talking about the United Arab Emirates. It's not the United Arab Emirates, okay? This is Oman. There's this white line here, see? It's Oman. Inside the United Arab Emirates, we have more white areas. Surreal, right? But it's true. This is also Oman. In other words, inside the United Arab Emirates itself, there's a small part that belongs to Oman. So this is Oman. This is Oman. And down here is the rest of Oman. This big, huge, enormous country here, see? Really big here. Look, it goes all the way to Yemen, okay? But they have two parts inside their own territory. We can say parts inside the territory of the United Arab Emirates, which are part of Oman. This one is called Nawar. And this region here, look, up here, okay? This is Oman. So the agreement was with Oman because of this piece here. My friends, that's it for now. If something serious happens in the Middle East, more serious than what's already happening, I'll come back at any moment. Otherwise, we'll meet again tonight for another live stream, talking about all the targets, updating the list of targets, updating the statements, updating everything that needs to be updated here in the region, okay? I'll be back later with more information. Hugs to all my friends in Israel and see you in the next live. Hugs also to the lefties out there. Hugs.